Hello, everyone. My name is Benjamin Grove. I am a decent Pokemon trading card game standard format player, but a big cube enthusiast. And I'm here to share my perspective for the draft for the Cube League Discord's monthly ish Cube League. And kind of share like my behind the scenes perspective on how I'm going to uh, go into the draft, build my deck, and get ready to compete in the league. If you're somebody who is interested in playing in our league, I'm going to leave the Discord link in the description below. We run monthly-ish events and biannually a championship, and so this Discord server is probably the premier spot to play Cube. It's probably the most competitive uh, Pokemon Cube atmosphere out there, and it's a really great community, and there are some really fun and interesting cubes out there to play, including this month's cube, which is CoinFlip Cube. But before I get into that, just a quick aside here for in case you've stumbled upon this video and they're like, what in the world is a cube draft? A cube draft is in basically any trading card game a specifically curated set of cards that a group of 6 to 8 players will sit down and make packs of and draft a card from a pack, pass it around the table, and from those cards build a deck. And so up on the screen I've got an example of a cube deck from my own personal cube, and you can see obviously that there are some really cool things going on. There are cards from a lot of different formats. You've got Pidgeot from Fire Red and Leaf Green interacting with Vivillon from, I mean, it's a Gen 6 card. I've got base set trainers plus more modern supporters. And so it's just my favorite way to play the Pokemon trading card game because there are just so many cool interactions and a lot of creative deck building expression that you can make. But this month in the Cube League, we are drafting CoinFlip Cube, which is probably the most bonkers cube out there, and it's really, really fun. The premise of this cube is any card that you have to make a coin flip for, you get to make the choice of heads or tails, whichever you want. So that just really opens up the possibility for a lot of cards that had never had any kind of consideration for being good. They really become insane. Like if you always flipped heads on all of your cram flips, like what would that world be like? And so that's kind of what coin flip cube is. And you can see I've highlighted up on the screen 3 cards that really kind of encapsulate that. We got Pokeball, which not a good card, but what if it was just Master Ball? Capturing Aroma, for all you Lugia enjoyers out there. What if you just got to always get the right one? And then this Assist Live part is just a cool card that has a great attack, but it has to be gated by a coin flip because otherwise it would be a little bit too powerful. Well, we can just straight up use it in coin flip cube. As you can see, there's a lot of really interesting cards in the cube that are just really great consistency once you get rid of the coin flip. And so like there are semi-staples like Messagoza, Dual Ball, Timer Ball, but those are all taken up a notch because, well, yeah, just Dual Ball is just better Battle VIP Pass. Like cool. And then you've got some really other cool cards that never would have seen the light of day just because of their coin flip, that they just have a lot of power, like Cross Transceiver. Flip a coin. If heads, search your deck for a supporter card. So just search your deck for whatever supporter you need. Reserve Ticket. Flip a coin. If heads, search your deck for a card. Shuffle your deck and put that card on top of it. It's just half a mallow on an item for free. And then even some weird stuff like Sabrina's Psychic Control. Flip a coin of heads, choose a trainer card in your opponent's discard, and that isn't like a supporter type card, and just use it. Crazy effect. So like yeah, you can just use Sabrina's Psychic Control on your opponent's Pokeball in their discard, and get to use that as just an item that you have, which is really cool. Um, the cube also has some really cool ways to cheat out big, powerful threats. Um, Probably the most famous way in the Pokemon trading card game to cheat out things is Maxie and Archie. And there are some Maxie and Archie targets in this cube. But the really cool thing in this cube that makes Maxie and Archie really easy to access is Night Teleporter, a card that's terrible otherwise. Flip a coin of heads, put all cards in your hand on top of your deck, then search your deck for any one coin card and put it into your hand. So it's just get rid of your hand. You just have now Archies or Maxies left. Get your guy out. And then there's the two big threats that we've got there: Swampert EX. And then Machamp are two of what I consider the two of the better Maxi Archie targets. There's also a Claydol GE in here that you can maxi out. You actually have to maxi that one out. That's its like balancing for this cube, but still really cool. The other more recent addition to the cube is the Altaria cheating out dragons from your deck. Otherwise, you would never play this card. I'm sure it didn't really see. I don't know. I didn't play when it was standard legal, but I doubt that it would have seen play. Flip a coin of heads, search your deck for a dragon Pokemon, and put it onto your bench. And there are some really great dragons. I'll touch a little bit on them later, but there's some really cool dragons that you can cheat out from your deck. Now I kind of want to get into my draft perspective and some of the things that I'm really going to be considering when I'm going through the draft. Now, obviously, there are just when we're drafting, there's going to be cards that are just high value cards that are just we know are high value cards. Like yes, Juniper, high value card. Pokeball. Everybody in this cube knows that Pokeball is a high value card. Evo Incense. I'm not going to necessarily talk about those. I'm going to touch on a couple things that I think I will overvalue compared to other people, and this is where I think I'll find my advantage in the draft. Um, First of all, Surprise Time Machine. I think Surprise Time Machine is probably my favorite card of all time. It's just a cool effect that we've never seen again, and it's so versatile. What it does is you choose one of your evolution Pokemon in play, you put the highest evolution back in deck, you devolve it, and then you search your deck for something that evolved from whatever you have left in play and bring it out of deck. Now, you can just devolve, put back in deck, and bring the same thing back out, which has a lot of utility. If you have like a once per turn ability, you can or Pokepower, you can reuse that because it counts as evolving that Pokemon, so it's new again. You can, as it was used when it was standard legal, you can put your Pokemon back in the deck and fail the search, so as to use an on-play effect again. And most of the cards I've highlighted here, the Typhlosion, the Arcanine, and the Fortress, that's one of the big uses that you can use with that. If you have a powerful ability that you want to use again, you can do that. And another thing that you can do with the like Typhlosion and Arcanine, these two particular Typhlosions and Arcanines in the draft, they are the big accelerators for their line, but then they have better attackers, and you can evolve into Typhlosion, use its ability, and then or Pokepower, and then Surprise Time Machine into the Typhlosion EX, which is just a big threat. It does 5 for 100, and so really useful card. Really like you're able to get value out of that card basically, I think, in any game you play. Like even if it's just okay, I'll Surprise Time Machine my Curlia so I can Refinement again. But I mean, sure, great, that's awesome. It's just really flexible. I will probably be tempted to take it way too high than I normally should. There's only 2 of them in the cube right now, so they're definitely a premium. One of the other similar effects to Surprise Time Machine is Swoop Teleporter. There are 4 Swoop Teleporter in the draft. I probably want to, even if I don't have the combo pieces for it yet, I will probably just spec onto it pretty early just because I think it's can have some really insane potential. One of the best ways to use Swoop Teleporter, which is sort of like a Ninja Boy type card on an item, is Unknown Y. Unknown Y, once during your turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, search your deck for a psychic energy card and attach it to one of your Pokemon with Unknown in its name. So Unknown Y is just a self-fulfilling engine every turn when you make the coin flip heads. And then you can just build up a whole bunch of energy on that Unknown for free, Swoop Teleporter it away, and bring out. I think the best card to bring out probably is there's a Regigigas in the cube. That's just like four colorless for 80. I mean, it's just something you can build up on your bench for free and then just go in. I would probably, there's a lot of decks that I'll jam an Unknown Y package into, as long as they have enough colorless cost in their attack, just because I think it's that good. I mean, you can't beat just free every turn, get an energy from deck. I mean, kind of good. A lot of times you can pair that Unknown Y with either Celebration Wind Shaman or Mewtwo Delta that has a similar Pokepower. Build up a whole bunch of energy on Unknown Y, slam down Shaman, and spread that energy across the board to where you need it onto your attackers. Really useful. I will say the one thing that's really gatekeeping this engine right now is that the cube creator has removed a lot of the haul-on Pokemon that would be able to really take advantage of the bonus energy in play and then turn that into rainbow energy. There's only one, I think there's one Holland's Electrode left in the cube right now. So that aspect of it is not as great anymore, but it's still really powerful. And I'll probably look for Swoop Teleporters early. There's 3 Unknown Y in the cube, so you can really just kind of like accidentally be like, oh yeah, I'll just take an Unknown Y, sounds good, and then it's just free energy. The last card that I've got here, that I think I'm not sure. I think this is probably the one that I will be able to get the most value out of, because Skyfield was a very late add. The cube creator, I think, literally like changed it yesterday or today, like right before the draft is happening. But there are now a bunch of copies of Skyfield, and that just makes a lot of the just like on play support basics so much better. Like, you can feel free to draft a ton of these and not really be worried about clogging up your bench from your attackers. So like Time Walk Azelf, Support Navigation Lapras, the Headbutt Tantrum Zigzagoon, just cards that have just great value by just slamming it into play, including this Celebration Wind Shaman, Unknown Y. There are tons of great Pokemon in this cube that are just on play bench sitters that you can feel a lot more confident about getting use out of with Skyfield in the cube. And I mean, you can even put in your own Skyfield and bump it for something else, ditch those guys to the discard, and then return them and use their effects again. Great value. So those are some cards that I think I will take higher than most people will, and I think that will give me an advantage in the draft. The other big thing I think that I'll be trying to keep in my mind while I draft is that there are a lot of damage and health mods right now, and that you probably need some of them. There are a couple new things like Defiance Band in this cube, where you're looking at Pokemon that have like an attacker that has 80 HP here, 110, 100. The plus 30 of Defiance Band That's huge. Same with plus 40 on black belt. Um, just big numbers relative to the size of the Pokemon here. So I'm going to have a couple of these things in deck, um, just really to either muscle through the things I need to muscle through or to withstand the hits. Whatever ones of these I can get my hands on are going to be really great. So like yeah, and like bodybuilding dumbbells, there are some stage ones in this cube that have 80 health. Like bodybuilding dumbbells is giving them plus 50% health, which like on a stage one today, like a 280 V star, that's like plus 140 in similar terms of ratio. So like that's how much of a swing bodybuilding dumbbells could be. So like these are cards that are really powerful in this cube, I think. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of the archetypes that I think are in a really great position, and if I draft these particular archetypes, um, I'll be in a really great spot. So that's not to say that the ones that I don't talk about here I wouldn't be happy to draft. I just think I've highlighted a couple that are the best, and what I'm going to be looking towards. So first on this slide, I've got the two main fire archetypes. We've got Typhlosion, which Typhlosion has, oh, well, and both of these lines, and the reason I put it on the same slide, both these lines have great energy acceleration and power. And so there's a Typhlosion. Both of the accelerating Typhlosions have a flip a coin, which we're just choosing heads. So this fire recharge Pokemon power is just the same as like Typhlosion Prime, and you're just fire startering a fire energy anywhere from this for this Typhlosion. The other Typhlosion is flip a coin. If heads, take 4 fire energy from deck, and then there's also one Typhlosion EX. I think the Typhlosion line just has great numbers, a great ability, and then the other cards in the cube, like I talked about earlier with Surprise Time Machine, really set it up well to just hit solid and consistent output while being big enough bodies that you're dodging 1-hit KOs, maybe you dodge 2-hit KOs, and then so you just have a real advantage. The one thing that I didn't mention earlier, this is, while the cards of this cube are, the attackers are of a very old era, because of all the consistency here, this cube is a very high powered cube. And I mean, there are a lot more 1-hit KOs and just like swinging back to back to back than you might think. And so having the power to pull energy from deck as well as then pull energy from discard, the Typhlosion line is really kind of set up for success. The Arcanine line, on the other hand, it has a couple limitations to it compared to Typhlosion. It can only pull from discard. It can only pull from discard while it's in the active. But it has a little bit more flexibility, I think, than the Typhlosion line. If you're going to build a Typhlosion deck, you're building Typhlosion. Like you're building a 4-3-4 Typhlosion line, maybe a couple big basic attackers like a Latias EX or a Blaine's Moltres or something like that. With Arcanine, because it can accelerate any basic energy, it doesn't have to be fire. When you combine it with cards like Celebration Wind Shaman, Scramble Switch, you can very easily power up some other different attackers that are powerful, while still like maintaining an attacking presence with your Arcanine. I think right now the best attacker to pair Arcanine with are the Change Clothes Magearna, mostly because that covers weakness. The main water line in this cube is Metal Weak. It's a Walrein line. So the Change Clothes Magearna is a great partner for it. So just like if you run 2 metal basic energy in your deck that you can bring out of the discard with Arcanine, scramble switch over to the Magearna, and hit the Walrein for 120. Pretty good. And then also Groudon EX is one of its attacks is basically like Arcanine EX's attack. Arcanine EX used to be in this cube. When I played this cube, when we did it for League a couple years ago, I played the Arcanine deck, and the EX was the super powerful attacking threat. It did 3 for 100 and discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. Groudon has that same 3 for 100 attack, just for fighting colorless instead of fire colorless, but easily powered up by an Arcanine. And so you have a lot of cool things to play around with that. The other attacking Arcanine in this cube isn't a slouch either, and it's really how you get around this Arcanine has to be in the active position for it to function, because when you on play that Arcanine, it's got kind of a Tapu Koko GX, is that the one that or like a Zapdos EX style effect that brings it to the attacking position, and you can move energy from your active Pokemon over to it. That guy hits for 120 damage, and I think it was not strong in previous iterations of this cube because it does damage to itself, but with all of these extra like bodybuilding dumbbells, seems pretty good. Okay, a couple other archetypes that I think are strong. The cheating out dragons play, specifically this Dragonite, is definitely the best. 150 health is massive in this cube for a one prizer. Deals 90 damage, heal 30. 90 is knocking out most stage ones, as you can see right here on this Jolteon. And you heal 30 from this Pokemon. You can really combine it with things like Citrus Berry to really just tank and really just get a ton of value from it. The attack is expensive, but if you pair it with something like an Unknown Y, a Swampert EX, even an Arcanine, you can really like accelerate to it and be attacking with it from out of nowhere, and just present a just gigantic threat that like your opponent will have to invest multiple attackers into to take it down. And the bit of testing that's been done with this, you've seen a lot of decks that want to go behind with it and go down a prize. That activates Defiance Band, that activates Black Belt, and you can see where this guy's just gonna be a truck. And so I think the Dragon archetype is really good, and I also think it got stealth buffed at the very last second. The Altaria line was like a 5 Swablu, 3 Altaria, and there were 3 of the Dragon Melody Altaria. At the last second, there was an addition of the Tempting Tune Altaria. So like now there are 4 Altaria in the cube, and so I think then there's an extra Swablu. It's going to be much easier. I don't think the Tempting Tune Swablu is good. There's better support mons in this cube, like Tasting, Slurpuff, Refinement, Curlia. Is Pidgeotto in this? I think Pidgeotto's in this. So there's better support mons than Tempting Tune Altaria, but it's a lot easier to just, like, hey, there's a Swablu. Yeah, I'll pick up a Swablu. So like on that end, it's a lot less of a commitment to get into that line. If you just randomly see a Swablu wheeling around the table early, you can just pick that up, and then all of a sudden later, you just like the line will just kind of fall into your lap, I think. The other archetype that I think is strong and I'm really considering is there's a lot of different ways to play spread packages with combinations of different attackers. I've highlighted the 2, I think, most common lines here that are paired up for spread. A lot of the spread stuff is low cost attacks like 1 or 2 energy, and there's just a it's dangerous, especially with the lower HP on a lot of the Pokemon than people might be used to. So like undeveloped Jolteon, if you evolved from Eevee this turn, this attack does 10 more damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So it's just got a nice spread attack. You can pair it up with Pokemon like Fortress, who has an on-play spread 10 damage to everything ability. There are a lot of spread lines in the cube. There's a Weezing that spreads. There's there's a Fortress attacker that also spreads. There's Miss Magius that spreads. Lots of spread stuff, and so it's really easy to get into that and play a coming from behind game with cards like Defiance Band. There's 4 counter catcher in here as well, so lots of ways to play spread. So if spread's falling into my lap, I'll gladly take it. Here are some other lines that I think are really strong, but you need a really strong draft to put it all together. The other lines that we've looked at so far, you can have a not as strong draft of that line, but just by the power that those lines provide, like, you'll still put together a really good deck. These lines I think are really strong, but you need all the pieces of it to really make it work. For example, with Crobat, you need the 2 Forests of Giant Plants. You need a couple DRE. You need maybe a Floette as well to buff the HP up, because a 90 HP stage 2 is not that great. But the Crobat line has some great attacks, some great effects. An early Judge into Flutter Trick can just be backbreaking and put your opponent out of the game. And the Flutter Trick part of it is not on a coin flip. Flip a coin if heads. No, we're choosing heads. We're thought seizing here, and we're just getting rid of something from your opponent. Really great. So there's a couple other Crobats that are better attackers than this one, but he's no slouch. He's probably who you'd want to go with in the early game, and then build up some of the other Crobat do like about 3 for 80, which is pretty on rate to knock out like a Liepard, which is a stage 1 attacker. So I think Crobat's in a really good spot. I think that if I'm going to play Crobat, I'm going to commit to it early and be really just trying to lock down all those pieces aggressively to it. It's not something I can just kind of be sitting back in the draft and being very open. If I'm going to play Crobat, I'm going to play Crobat. Same thing with Liepard. I really don't think I've seen many Liepard decks be built from when I've played this cube, but it really has the potential, because as long as you've got some great threats on your bench, Liepard is copying their attacks, guaranteed, and there are also some special Darkness Energy to boost up your damage even more. You really want to lock down things like Dark Patch and those special Dark, and some of the I think probably the easier pieces to pull off on this will be some of the big basic EXs that will probably come around the table. Those are your best attackers, because they're not 2 prizers for you. You're putting up a 1 prizer here to attack with. So that's part of the deck's biggest strength. At the 3 energy cost point, and the fact that there's no inbuilt acceleration to the line, you really want to lock down those ways to accelerate energy for yourself, whether that's Dark Patch, that's DRE, those kinds of things, so that you are able to chain attackers. Because as I said earlier, in this cube, it is not uncommon for just like you and your opponent to swing back to back, taking KOs. So Liepard, if you can get it where it's going to be attacking, it's going to be in a great spot. I'm not really sure about the Nido line's identity in this cube. One of the weird quirks, because it's cube, you can play with whatever custom rules you want. this line is a combination of Nido Kings and Nido Queens, and you can evolve from either gender into either gender. So you can have a Nidorina evolving into Nido King. But really, what that does for in this cube setting is it means that each Nido King or Queen in here is an interesting and synergistic piece of the line. You have the Nido Queens that provide support and pull evolutions out of the deck. And then you've got some really big payoff attackers. This Nido King that I've got on the screen actually, I think is an interesting target for Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick. And if you're able to get like a Fluffy Berry, this guy's really interesting because it's just like, okay, every turn after a KO, just promote Nido King with a Fluffy Berry on it. Use its Poke Power to put a damage counter on each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Like, you get a ton of value from that. I'm not necessarily sure what the Nido King's identity as a line is right now and really what the best way to play it is. But I do think that there are some really strong pieces. And if I see in the first pack, like we're on maybe like pick 3 or 4 in the first pack, and I see like a Nido King or a Nido Queen and nothing else good, yeah, I'm going to go for the Nido King or Queen there and see how it pans out. Malamar is an interesting line in this cube. It's a really control-based line. I'm not a good control player. I'm really not. I don't have the brain power to do it, I don't think. So is there a really good Malamar list out there in this cube that you can build? I do think so. Am I the best person to do it? I don't think so. But it definitely is ripe for exploitation if you get a lot of those controlling pieces early. I don't think that people will prioritize taking these Malamar in the draft themselves, but the controlling pieces that you can build around it with like Double Gust, Counter Catcher, cards like that. Team Aqua's Secret Base. Yeah, there's a plus retreat card in this cube, I believe. If you can build around those, you can have a really nasty control deck. Am I the person to build it? Probably not, but I mean, if I get a lot of the pieces early and I see the Malamar, I mean, why not? I think it's really strong. And then the last one here that I've got is Celebi Prime. One of the most interesting things that came out of the previous Cube League run of this cube was that there was a deck that was basically Celebi Prime plus Cherrim, and Cherrim was originally really thought of as to be a support line. It buffed fire and grass types damage. And there's some healing Cherrim abilities in here too, but with some Floettes and with Celebi Prime, that was just played as just like that's the deck. And that's really cool. I don't think this cube is in the best spot for that to be a good deck because right now there are. I think it's easier to splash in a big basic that gets through the Celebi Prime time circle effect. Like in Fire right now, like if you're playing Arcanine, it's actually really easy. There's Moltres EX. So like, okay, Celebi Prime has announced Time Circle. Okay, I will simply delete it with Moltres EX. In the past, it was probably harder for that Arcanine deck to build up a basic attacker to hit through the Celebi. But right now, I think it's not in the best spot with what good basic attackers we have. But I do still just think the effects of this deck are really powerful, and there's probably a way to play Celebi plus Cherrim to really just sweep through the tournament. The Celebi Cherrim deck last time around got top 8, so it's really strong. I mean, I would not say no to taking an early Celebi Prime because that's just free acceleration, especially free grass acceleration to pair with like a Dragonite. Seems pretty good to me. Other final thoughts that I have, I'm just looking forward to this draft. CoinFlip Cube is my favorite because it really takes what the Pokemon trading card game has given us and takes it in a really creative way, and so it gets you thinking about cards in ways that you've never thought of, and gets you thinking about cards you've never thought of before. Um, and so it's a really exciting cube to play, and I hope you enjoy my draft that's going to follow this up, as well as I'm hoping to record a couple of my matches throughout the league, and we'll see how I do. But I'll see you until that point.